Hello and welcome to Particular, a podcast that talks about particular topics and ideas in not a particular way. My name is Alena Zavarzina, and I wanted to start this episode by giving you a little bit of context. So I've known Alena for years. She's the hero of my first documentary film, and it started our friendship. Alena Zavarzina is a professional snowboarder, Olympic bronze medalist, world champion, and a professional graphic designer now. We talk about starting a new career, moving to a new country, and making art without a national identity since the start of the war. I also want to say that the war in Ukraine is still going on, and you can help people of Ukraine by donating to charities of your choice. My friend is coordinating a fund for 9 volunteer teams across Ukraine, and direct money donations sent to him are being spent on the ground within hours on warm clothing, food, water, and medical supplies. I will list all the details in the description box. And now, on to the podcast. I want to start with a disclaimer that it's going to be the hardest podcast I've ever done, because you're the person that I know for quite a long time, and it's going to be really hard to kind of distance myself from knowing a lot about you. So, Alena, how do you introduce yourself? And how does it differ from how you introduced yourself back in Russia and how you introduce yourself now here in the UK?
Well, in Russia, I used to. It's not really the country that makes me introduce myself differently. It's that I used to be famous and now I'm not. So the difference is I used to be Alena the snowboarder, and now I'm just Alena. And that's the difference. Now I'm Alena the graphic designer. That's the only difference.
Okay, so we're gonna cover that a bit later, but I wanted to ask you to briefly tell the listeners how would you summarize your path to where you are now in maybe 2 or 3 sentences, and then we're gonna dig deeper into it.
Okay, so I used to be a professional snowboarder for most of my life. I competed in the Olympics, and that was what I was doing. And then I decided to quit and to become a graphic designer. And I went to study in the UK, went to the CSM graphic design course, and I did the BA there, graduated this summer. And now I'm pursuing my career in the creative industry, trying to become a creative director or something along those lines.
Okay, but can you tell a bit more about your snowboard career, and why did you decide to quit and to completely start over from scratch in a different sphere?
I got disillusioned in the hiring organization, which was the Russian government. And they made my life pretty difficult. There was a lot of there were a few things that were coming together when I was finishing my career. My mom has passed away. I became fourth at the Olympics, and basically the life of a Russian athlete became hell, and it wasn't fun anymore. So I decided to stop. And I mean, it was time to stop anyway, I think, because one can't be an athlete for forever. And it was a really hard decision. If I didn't want to stop, then I kind of wanted to keep going. But I think it's difficult to stop something that you love doing and that you're good at, and nobody wants to do it unless they have to. So I think the circumstances sort of decided for me to stop, and I think it was a good decision, even though I miss it now. And most of all, I miss being good at something. But as I heard recently, some people never even get to the point where they're very good at something. So like, welcome to the real life. But yeah, that's why I decided to stop. It just wasn't fun anymore, and it was taking more than it was giving to my life. The toll was quite great, and I sort of just gave up on trying to be a Russian athlete in a world that doesn't want Russian athletes to be there. And I wanted to take control over my life. I didn't want to be denied a job because of some decisions from above. Because it doesn't matter how good you are, whatever you do, if someone else fucks it up, then there's nothing you can do about it, and it's really unfair. And that was 4 years ago, and then obviously now, like 4 years after, we are in a world where Russian athletes can't even compete internationally. So it goes to show that I've probably made the right decision.
But what was the most terrifying when you were making this decision?
The most terrifying was that I will never have a job again. I might never, I won't be able to make money. Like, I had to grow up. And the growing up process had to sort of go overnight. It was really quick, really sudden, because I used to be an athlete since I was a child, and that was how I was making money since I was 14 years old. I've never been out of job since then. I didn't rely on my parents pretty much growing up. I didn't live with my parents. I didn't, they weren't really giving me money. I was self-sufficient. And when I had to stop snowboarding, I realized that I probably would have some sort of a parachute for a while. But then eventually I had to figure something out for myself, because, that's just the way it is. And whatever that was, I had to decide. And that was really scary, because I was like, what if it's the wrong thing? Or what if I'm not going to be good at it? Or what if nobody will believe me or hire me ever? I just wanted to be hired. But also, I can't really, a lot of people who are athletes decide to start their own business. But I have a fear of my own business, because my mom had her business, and I've seen how her business was rated in the 2000s, and how the economic police, or whatever, it's called the economic police of Russia, isn't it? It's the whatever, the white collar crime police basically was knocking on my mom's office doors, and she had to I had to witness the raids of her office, and how she was years of courts and litigations, and that took a toll on my mom's psychology and mental health, and generally what I think that's what ultimately made her super depressed. And I do think that ultimately that killed her. So I think that's a very hard memory for me, and that's why I don't want to take any responsibility for my own business. I'm really scared of authority. I don't want to start my own business. I don't want to face the consequences of dealing with the police or whatever. I just have this fear that somebody will come for me, even it doesn't matter if I did something or not. So that's why I'm not super eager to open a nail salon or something. Otherwise, that would be my second option.
Nail salon. Okay. I can't really imagine that, but yeah, that's fine. Whatever you say. I will have to do a lot of translation, I guess, afterwards. But as I mentioned in the beginning, because I know like a lot of context, and I was there when you were making decision to quit your professional sports career, and I wanted you to tell a bit more about how did your like first year look like, because I knew whilst you were a professional athlete, you're already interested in graphic design. But for some people, when you quit something, they don't have straight away like something that they decided to pursue afterwards. So how it was for you for the first year, like trying out new things, or did you just like straight started like um, kind of upgrading yourself in graphic design?
It's interesting. I think I was more sure in what I wanted to do my first year than I am now. Because I like even my first project, I was lucky enough to work with Nike Moscow to do a publication for them. Now, and to this day, it's my biggest client. My first client was my biggest client just because like I still had something. I mean, I still had something somewhat of a name from the sports world in Moscow. That's why I had that opportunity. Here in London, of course, nobody knows me, and nobody's going to give me that opportunity. I have to fight for it like everyone else. And through the fact that I'm actually not 19 years old, and I'm not willing to start from like a minimum wage position anymore. So that was like, I just knew I was attracted by the creative industry. What exactly I would want to do, I kind of didn't know, but like it was something along the lines of art direction, or maybe like um, some directorial kind of work. I was considering um, going to like video production and doing that, but I sort of thought that graphic design is like the gateway to the industry altogether, and it's like a good start to to become like a multidisciplinary designer or whatever you can decide later. And I thought that maybe if I get on that course, that will give me time to realize, like, to understand what I want to do next, and it doesn't matter like how I start. I just need to start doing something. And that was like one of the best advice that I received at that point. Somebody who was an art director at that time in Moscow, one of the agencies, just told me that like just go and do something, like start doing it, whatever it is. And that's what I kind of did. And then now I'm here for 4 years later. Yeah.
And what kind of tips would you give yourself back then when you were starting basically from scratch and having like um, not being like famously known as a graphic designer? Like, well, what tips would you give to yourself back then?
I don't really know. Like I think I did pretty well. Mm, the less you know, the better. What tips would give myself right now if I knew everything? Get your money the fuck out of investments, I would say. Offshore, get the money out of Russia, go buy a house somewhere not in Russia, and that's the only advice I would give myself right now. Everything else I've nailed. Well, not nailed, but like, it's nice not to know kind of where you're going. Trust the process. Um, there is nothing like really that I could, suggest. If I knew like the more you know, the less you want to do it, because it is difficult to start something when you're 30 years old, especially when you were, I had a lot of people telling me how you are something in what you're doing and you'll never make that much money in that new industry that you're going to, and nobody knows you, and have you really considered, like, why don't you just be a snowboard coach? Why don't you start a snowboard school? And I'm like, I don't love snowboarding that much. I mean, I love it, but like I don't love the people who made my life hell in, where I was. I'm not saying that I don't love snowboarders. I love snowboarders, but I didn't love the ones that were making my life hell in Russia. And I don't think that I really fit there. I was always too artsy, and not in a good way, for for an athlete and too athletic for the art world. So I kind of did not really fit there. So right now, I don't know, like literally the only advice I would give myself is like, don't worry about money right now, because that's when the money was okay. Now, 4 years later, I'm like, shit, I wish I spent more money on myself back then. Also in 2018, I went to New York and I went to Calvin Klein, and they had those really nice red boots. And I thought, oh no, I can't get those boots. I can't afford to get those boots. Now I'd be like, girl, you better bought those boots. So that's the advice that I would give myself. Buy those fucking boots when you can, because there's going to be times when you can't even buy like grocery store shopping.
Was it important for you to kind of detach yourself from your previous career to start the new one? Or do you find yourself now like kind of like an intersection of using your legacy of a professional snowboarder in graphic design?
I have a really hard time finding that intersection. It's a process, and it takes me a long time to get through things, but I sort of had to forget who I was. I sort of had to cancel whoever I was back when I was a snowboarder to get this humility to start something new and to suck at it. You're nobody, and you have to just do the work and hope that something's gonna work out. Um, there is definitely no entitlement in terms of my previous career. And a lot of people are saying that like you can't just like straight up forget who you were. You have to sort of use it and build on top of it. And I understand, but in practice, I have little idea of how to do it. I don't know how to use my legacy as a professional snowboarder, other than, oh, cool story, bro, that you were, traveling the world and, shaking hands with like world leaders. Like nobody, that's not like what makes my CV stand out. Or at least like not in a way that I want it to be. So I'm still working on it.
And when you decided to finish your career, it was the same year that you moved to UK. So did it help to start in a new place, like your new life, studying at CSM and like pursuing your graphic design career? Or would it be easier to do it back home?
I probably would be easier to do it back home, but I don't think I would be the same, like I would be the same level back home. Like there was a couple, a couple of things that really happened to me, not just like, becoming a designer. I also got a divorce. So, I mean, like I did have I also haven't seen my dad for 4 years. So like it's been, there's been a couple of things that I had to kind of go through. And no, I don't think that I've chosen the easiest way. Definitely not. If I, the easiest way would be probably to live in Moscow, to live in my apartment, to have some sort of stability, to rely on my family and, people that I know, and, like make, a name in the city that already knows me. But now, as we see, that wouldn't have worked out, because I would probably have to go to Georgia or something, like it turns out that I did make the right decision. And I'm not saying that like, oh wow, like everybody who stayed there made the wrong decision. I'm not saying that it's just a different thing. I had a different way of getting out of Russia. It's not like I didn't leave Russia because I was a dissident in 2018. I had my own battle with it.
Going a bit back, when you moved to the UK, you studied in CSM, and can you tell a bit more, like why did you decide to go and study somewhere like to get a degree in graphic design, whereas you could have started just doing graphic design by yourself? So why did you find important like the education itself?
Well, I I am a good student, generally, like in life. So I think that like following rules is important, especially because I've been always told that I have to, and that I kind of had like a bit of a complex that I didn't have a proper degree because, like I was an athlete and I sort of ignored education for a while. I had like a kind of like a degree. I had a bachelor's in economics, but it was like an online course, which has online degree, which I don't really consider a real thing. But my parents, like my grandmother, thank you so much, my grandmother, for countless of hours of therapy. That she was like, you need to finish school to be a real person. When are you going to find a real job? Being an athlete is not a real job, especially not, in the world of our parents. Like people from the Soviet Union don't consider athleticism or working in the athletics or sports world a real job. My dad told me when I was 20 years old and I quit my first art school in Novosibirsk because I had to go to the Olympics. He told me that uh, adult men won't listen to you unless you have a degree. And I don't know, it's kind of like lost in translation, but it's like no matter how you just like try to translate it, that sentence is full of misogyny and patriarchy and just fully like condescending, uh, which is, he didn't do it because he hates me. That's just the way, he was brought up. But it really like made a mark on my brain. And I, for 5 years, I think I had a complex that I was stupid. Basically, my dad told me that, and for 5 years I was questioning, why do my friends from Moscow State University, who finished the law school, why are they friends with me? Maybe they're friends with me because they're making fun of how stupid I am. So that was like something that I had to work through. So finally, now that I have a degree from like a world leading design school, I can finally get over it. So that cost me £60,000. Thank you very much. um, so yeah, that's why. And I think that I don't want anyone to tell me that I don't belong because I don't have a degree. I got a degree from the best school in the world, so you can shove it.
And like right now, I hear a lot of stories from people that finished like some kind of art school, whether it's like graphic design or film or wherever. It's quite hard to find your own style afterwards, to find yourself, to kind of form your own style, because you are taught in like this standards that have been there for years. I don't know if it's the same in CSM, but for example, in my university back in Russia, like they had the same standards for over like almost 100 years. And for me, it was really hard to find my own voice and style afterwards. So how it is for you now, because you finished this year, so it's been like more than half a year since you graduated. How do you find it?
I think that CSM is really good at giving you room to develop your style. Nobody tells you what to do, and I wish they did tell me what to do. Like this year, it was so hard for me to finish, my degree project. Like I talked to you. Remember, like how many times did I have an idea and I didn't go with it? And it's almost like at that point I was like, somebody tell me what to do. I can't. I'm just completely incapable of creating anything because I was completely out of whack with like this, the news of the war and the tragedy, and it was really difficult. And I wish somebody told me what to do, but they didn't. And I had to finish the school and I had to come up with a project, and I did. I'm not saying that the style that I have now, and it's not like I don't even know if I do have a style, but like some people say that I do. I'm not really sure. But like with snowboarding, you know, I didn't really fully enjoy my style of writing, and now I don't really fully enjoy my style of designing, but I can't really do anything about it. That's just the way it is. It's like I am not going to be a clean, super fashionable, like super like tight sort of designer. I'm gonna be always a bit subversive, like, and I like my kind of, this is how my experience in life reflects on what I'm doing now. It's always going to be a little bit dark, a little bit dirty, a little bit like subversive and like breaking the rules. And I think that's like, that probably is my style, and like that's how it got developed at CSM. If I studied in a Russian school, that definitely wouldn't happen, because I did start in I did study for 2 years in kind of like a classic art school, where my brother, who's 18 years old now, he studies in the same school, and he's going through the same ordeal that I had to go through, and he's posting like those pictures of like him doing those like pointel like drawings with like ink and like this ink pen, and like it's just torture. Like, we're in a digital world now, grandma, like we have to like move on. I don't even understand why those people do it. Like, it's been the same curriculum for, probably for 100 years, like you say. And I don't know like what good is going to happen like after somebody finishes school like that, like other than like a highway to therapy, psychological trauma, and people just like telling you that you are nothing. Yeah, I really don't know what's gonna happen after because of that. But yeah, I think that art schools in here in England at least are more likely to help you develop your style rather than ruin it.
Was it important for you to be, so let me state it this way. So basically in sports you have a very clear way of grading yourself. So you either get it like gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal. You either are a champion or like you're not a
Loser.
champion. we can say that. In art world, we do have festivals, for example, even like in graphic design as well, like you have festivals, you can get awards, but you can also be like a really good graphic designer and don't have awards because you just don't want to maybe participate in them. So is it kind of like, did you have to bend yourself in a way to like not to try to be competitive and get this awards, if you understand what I mean?
Not that like a lot of awards were waiting for me. I wouldn't. It's not like that somebody was giving them away or something. I didn't really have to bend myself out of shape because of that. It's sort of hard. I mean, it's almost like there is a category of people who are in graphic design who want awards, the golden pencil AD&D award. Yeah. And I've seen it around, I mean, not around, like I'm not around greatness like that yet, but I've heard about it. And it's like, there is like a certain type of art world that is prone to that. And there are people who are like, no, I'm not even going to compete. And I think that I'm sort of like torn in the middle. It's almost like I do want awards because it's nice to be validated, but on the other hand, I couldn't be bothered anymore to like fight for anything. Like I've fought enough, and I don't want to do that. But it was really hard for me. I don't like that I don't have instant validation of a gold medal. I wish I did, because that's easy. That means if you get a gold medal in sports, means you're doing something right. In graphic design right now, I have no idea. I don't know if I'm doing anything right. What if I'm not? What if I'm doing everything wrong? Like, I don't know. And that's why it's so difficult. That's why you're always kind of like looking for validation, and you have this inner battle that they can't really value it because they don't see it, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening. So in the last 4 years, like my social media presence reduced to like bare minimum, and people probably think that I just like don't exist anymore, but I do, and it's been harder than ever. And
you do post a lot of memes though.
Yeah, I do post a lot of like graphic design memes or raccoon memes or
mental health memes, like
mental health memes,
health crisis memes. Yeah.
it's it's a lot of that. So people think that I probably live in a state of a perpetual rehab, but but I don't. Um, so the inner battle is still a battle.
You like when you finished your career and like you, as you said, you had a lot of like events happening for the past 4 years since you moved to the UK. You also wrote a book about yourself.
Oh yeah. That happened.
That happened. So I wanted to ask you, was this book, because I need to distance myself from this book because I read it and I read like multiple drafts of you've been sending me the chapters as well. So was this book more as a, like, was it a PR or was it more like a mental health exercise to kind of, like finish the chapter of your previous life and start a new one, just to kind of finalize and summarize it? So what was it for you?
Yeah, the latter. I think it was definitely not PR. I mean, there was no publicity. It was absolutely zero. It was negative publicity on that book.
Negative
Literally,
publicity is also publicity,
no, they just, they just did. It was a vacuum of information. There's nothing going on. There is nobody.
Was I
nobody
was
knew
I
about
the
this.
only person who bought it on Ozon?
You're the only person. No, I also bought 2 copies for my grandmother on Amazon.
Okay.
So we're like 1 and 2 lucky owners of a
I
book.
should have left a review though. I didn't. Sorry.
You should be like, this book is pure garbage. Well, like I wish. I'm just saying that because I wish I had more PR and I wish I had more recognition for the book. But some people read it. It was a really good, like you said, it was a really good exercise of sort of like a self confession 30. That was the it also like it also is quite impressive if you think about it, that one can actually write a book and like you don't, it's kind of like a big deal. But at the same time, I don't think that my book writing process was like the usual. Like it wasn't like that. It wasn't polished. It was slightly edited. Like it wasn't even like there wasn't a lot of work with me and the editors. It was just like, it was pretty raw, and that's why there was a lot of room for improvement for that book. And it's only published in Russian, so people like my friends here were asking whether I would translate that book to English, but like only for a few friends to read it, because like nobody really gives a shit. So I don't even know. A couple of people who have read the book really liked it. A couple of people, like not a couple, but like a lot of people actually, on 8 out of 10 people had positive reviews. 2 out of 10 people, I don't know, like my grandmother.
Your grandmother didn't like the book.
My grandmother, I don't know. Like I think my grandmother, last thing that she told me was that your book, read it and forget it. Like she was like, your book, what book? Read it and forget it. I was like, okay, well, okay. And then basically that was the last time I've spoken to her. I don't like criticism.
That's how it's easy to finish friendship with you. I should have known that for a long time.
Yeah, you've been very positive towards my endeavors. This is why we're still friends.
Was it a right decision though? I don't know.
I mean, you still have you have time to talk some shit.
Okay, yeah.
But my ex-coach called it pulp fiction. He was like, didn't know you were into pulp fiction. I was like, does he know what it means? Like, does he know that word has like a negative connotation? Or so I didn't really know whether his comment was negative or positive, but it sort of stuck with me as well, because I love when somebody talks shit about me. It sticks to me for years, and then it makes me feel better after I get through it by buying a bunch of short courses somewhere and paying to get through this. That's what makes me upgrade and grow. that constant scrutiny from people who actually didn't even thought about this, like people who just say something because they have a necessity to say something. Um, yeah, but nevertheless, yeah, I did write a book. Read it and forget it. That's that's how it was. Also, the name of the book was Bad Sport, which I think that I should kind of um, keep going with that. My other project this summer, my graduate project was another thing, was called Bad Sport. That was a magazine about doping culture. Um, so I am kind of drawn to that, but I sort of want to close that chapter. I like never think about this again. So I think it was kind of like a self-reflective outlet.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to like kind of pay attention to, is that still in your works in CSM, you still did use the topics of like sport and doping and like your previous career, and only for your graduate project, the one with the passport, uh, you basically used like the situation that is now happening, like with the war in Ukraine, and how people in Russia are reflecting in it, and how people like who left Russia as well. After graduating CSM and now, do you think you will still continue to come back to these topics and come back to your like legacy as a professional athlete, or you want to kind of move away from it?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think that I'm going to come back to the legacy of me as a professional athlete. What I'm coming back to more is, well, the my degree project was had nothing to do with sports. It had more to do with the national identity crisis that I've experienced this year because of the war, and because I was so I was identifying with the Russian government, because for so many years I represented it on the international sports arena, and I literally had to wear the Russian flag, and like I saw the flag next to my name, and so that was quite um, starting in February. I was like, who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I so ashamed of my country? And I didn't know what to do with it. So I had to, and also because I had the block of like, I couldn't even come up with any other creative project. It wasn't really a choice. I had to let it out, and I had to make a project about national identity crisis, which was the passport project. So I made a book about. It was a book of interviews, just for the listeners. It was a book of interviews with my um, friends who denounced the war and who had to leave Russia, and it was about the experience of how that went for them, and how like what kind of like what is being Russian to them in this day and age, and how do they like where is it going, um, and what is the national identity. And it was in the shape of a passport, because that's like my pain and burden, that I have this red useless book that sort of gives me so much pain and locks me in, not, being able to travel. I cover it up when I go through a passport control because I'm ashamed. I don't like the prejudice. Like that was my experience, and I didn't talk about it in the book because I wanted to let other people talk about it. And not everybody feels like that. Not everybody felt ashamed. A lot of people are still proud to be Russian, but like the discourse of being Russian in the last half year has changed quite a lot, and there's been more people have been reading more history, and yeah, I've been hearing a lot about. Some people are straight up denouncing the Russian culture. A lot of people are saying that like there's a lot of this like people need to stop holding on to Tchaikovsky and the ballet and all of that. That's not Russia. That's not Russia anymore. And what is Russia then? Like what should one hold on to if not that? um yeah, I don't really have an answer, but I mean, I don't think it's not that simple, and it's not that um binary anymore. But I think the more I thought about it, the less I have to say about it. And I think that was important. to come up with this project.
Yeah, and do you like for me, I can totally resonate with this idea of like losing your national identity, because for me, for the past half year since the war started, for me it was really hard to kind of find myself, because like now I also live in the UK, and I don't have any connection with Russia in a way that I don't have any work there anymore, and like starting from scratch here is quite hard. But also I find it really liberating in a way, because you're free to build yourself again, and maybe you can use your previous experiences and kind of not make the past mistakes, and kind of build a better version of yourself. So did you find like this, your graduation project, was it also liberating for you? Because kind of like you're now in the UK, and your partner, he's British as well, so basically you're like very um like you're very consumed by this British culture, and like I don't know, but most of your friends are English speaking now. So is it kind of liberating for you, kind of to detach yourself from this Russian culture, or do you still like kind of long for this your Russian identity?
I wouldn't say that my graduation project detached myself from a Russian culture in any way. I'd say it attached myself to Russian culture even more, because I literally was wearing Airflot uniform at the, at the degree show. Like, I mean, I can't, like, you can't like erase this. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't just like it's. I wish I could just get another name and like pretend I'm not Russian, and maybe change my accent, and sort of start drinking afternoon tea and like eat scones and everything. But like, which I actually do that. But anyway, but I wouldn't say I'm consumed by British tradition as much as you are. For example, I didn't queue up for the Queen. Um,
I'm gonna edit this out.
I apologize. I haven't applied for my citizenship yet, so I'm free to say that I'm liberated. But I mean, like, I'm not. I can't detach myself from being Russian, and that's the tricky part.
Is it though? Because I find myself that I love Russian.
Detaching.
No, no, not detaching, but I find myself that I really long for like Russian language and Russian culture being here. Like I love it more. And like, for example, back in Russia, I wouldn't really spend time like reading Russian literature that much. I was more interested like in foreign literature. But now I find myself being more interested in who I am and who is like what is my culture. And I don't know if it's because I'm here and I'm not back home, or is it because I'm homesick or something. So I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, that's called nostalgia.
But nostalgia it's basically longing for something you had. And I wasn't a big like fan of Russian culture back home. So that's something new for me.
I think it's still. I mean, I think it is still nostalgia. Nostalgia is just something that. I mean, you did have Russia, now you don't, but you are longing for it in a positive way. That's why it's nostalgia, um, and that's kind of like when I was reading about national identity and why people and communities who are like diasporas in different countries, like what is the national identity to them. Nostalgia is a part of national identity. To be able to experience nostalgia for your country is a part of your national identity. So that's kind of like a progress with you, because when I talked to you for my publication that was in what, like April or March, you had different feelings. You were just like, fuck it and forget it. Like, I'm not coming back. I'm happy to be here. I'm so happy that I'm not there, and just like not my thing anymore. But now you see you have developed, like you've worked through something, and like you are in a different place now. And then this is another, like, I think it goes to show that again, it's not that simple. We can't just simply detach ourselves from where we're from. We can't just forget our roots. And I think the more you are away from it, the more unfortunately you will long for.
And but talking about nostalgia, do you have nostalgia by your um, by who you were in a way, like you're like being a professional athlete back then, or
No, I do. I mean, I was fun. Now I'm really, I'm not
now
fun.
she's not fun. That's a
I'm
disclaimer.
heavy.
She's not fun.
Nobody likes to hang out with me. I'm really difficult. I cry a lot. Um, I was, I have a nostalgia for like when everything was nice and easy. When I was an Olympic medalist and I was making a lot of money and I could travel the world and I could just like, snap my fingers and appear in Bali or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, that's just the way it is forever now. And I miss that. I miss being effortless. I miss being good at something, but the best at something. I haven't been doing something that I'm really good at for 4 years now. I'm kind of like, and I think I've chosen that process of like full immersion into the new thing, and that's definitely not easy. I mean, some people who quit snowboarding, they still live near the places where they could snowboard. I don't, and that's really hard. I wish like I had an opportunity, like when you don't know what to do, go snowboarding. And that's real. That for me, that would be so much easier mentally to deal with my struggles if I could have an outlet. Like I even stopped working out. And that was another thing that I had to go through, because like now a lot of people are talking about how they love sports and what kind of workout they're doing. And I literally have no time for that. Like I think the way I went through this was complete detachment from like who I was, so I can kind of like die and get reborn. And that's how I did it, but not subconsciously or not consciously.
And yeah, can you tell us a bit more what your like professional plans are right now? Like, what are you doing? What do you plan to do? And maybe you can share like any projects that you like plan to do, or where we can find you on social media.
Um, well, thank you very much. I am currently between jobs, and I'm a multidisciplinary graphic designer. So if anyone wants to hire me, find me on alenazavarzina.com and drop me a line, or at superzina on Instagram. And again, drop me a line and hire me. And I am best at making invitations. I make really killer invites to events. Um, but I also do publications and digital and whatever other types of design. I don't know. I'm fine. I'm looking for a job that won't treat me like shit. I'm looking for a job that will pay me okay and that will treat me well and value me, and hopefully I'm going to find it soon. That's my current project.
That's the struggle of a creative in the UK, I would say. Finding the job.
They will treat you well. Yeah.
Do you plan to do anything connected with snowboarding?
I do plan to get a bunch of equipment and start teching snowboards and skis for people who are lucky enough to go snowboarding. So that's.
I knew you didn't detach. I knew it.
I know I detached. I'm reattaching. Well, my therapist today told me it was a really good idea. Well, now I'm in a different position where I can embrace what I used to do and find comfort in that. So maybe that's what's going to happen. I'm gonna start a side hustle of teching skis and snowboards, preparing them for the slopes for people who are in London, because there's not many service places for ski and snowboard equipment. So that's my hobby.
Okay, and I finally should use you as my best friend to teach me.
If that's the way you want to call it.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? I'm gonna finally use you as my best friend. What does it mean?
Because like you're a professional snowboarder. I don't know how to snowboard yet. Like what is happening?
You've used me as a best friend in other capacities. How many titles have I done for your films? Come on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay.
I can also do titles for films, guys. Okay. Holler.
Okay. Thank you, Alena, for being on my podcast, and we wish
Merry
you
Christmas.
all the best with finding your the job of your dreams.
It's time
and
to
Merry
be jolly.
Christmas. It is. I hope you will be.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. Please do subscribe and share. Leave comments on any platform you use for listening to podcasts. Check out the links I will leave in the description below, and please email us with your stories and suggestions for the next topics. Have a great week.